I think the way I define ethics is the inner sense you have that something's right and wrong. That it's just a knowledge you have, an inner knowledge. It may come from Jesus or teachings that you receive in a church or your parents, but it's just something that differentiates humans from a lot of other animals. That you just know if it's right or wrong. That's a simple answer. I think that's all I would be able to tell you.
I think ethics is about tell whether it's right or wrong.
Ethics are what you feel inside as morally good or bad, basically. Ethics would be characterized as what you feel is wrong, what you feel is bad, and it's good. So it's a definition between good and bad. Your definition of good and bad.
I think ethics are the moral codes in which we live by. It's the little things that we can do to respect one another. In a nutshell, it's just doing what is right and what you think and know in your heart is correct for the good of humanity.
My definition of ethics would be, I guess, how someone conducts themselves, especially when others aren't looking. The moral pride that they have, or I guess the moral fiber that they pride themselves on, and what it is and what values they hold near and dear to themselves, and expect others not just to value and respect as their values, but to engage in a community.
Ethics are kind of like the morals that we as a society are defined by. To be ethical is to be accepting of different kinds of cultures and to be very moral about things.
To me, it's that inner battle that I'm faced with when I can see both sides of an issue, and trying to decide which one makes sense at this time, at this place, at this actual incident or opportunity or just situation. And so I know you won't find that definition in Webster's dictionary, but to me it's the challenge, it's the inner battle that goes on between what's right for me might be not right for somebody else, and wrong. And so I'm trying to be open-minded and figure it all out.
I feel that ethics is the way people personally decide what's right and what's wrong, and how they should react, how they should act properly in society.
Okay, ethics is doing the right thing when you know you should do the right thing.
Ethics is the moral integrity of someone to know what is right and what is wrong. It is your ability to do what's not just good for you, but what's good for the community and what's good for everybody. The beneficial for not just one person, but for the greater being, the greater society.
I consider ethics to be your foundation of characteristics of honesty and integrity upon which all other decisions are made. That's what ethics are, that foundation.
Ethics is the way nature puts things, alright? The ethic in nature, the strong will survive, right? It's a certain set of rules that nature put on us, alright?
Ethical dilemma that we had just discussed, where an employer in Ohio required people who worked in their place of employment to be tested to see whether they smoked, have a urine test to see whether they smoked or not. And if they did smoke, then they couldn't have a job there. And if they didn't smoke and the urine showed that they didn't smoke, then they could have a job there. And since it's not illegal to smoke, some people might consider it unethical to require urine testing, and so that's a dilemma.
An ethical dilemma I once faced is what one of my friends will, for this instance, we'll just label him as friend A. Friend A told me something about friend B's life, and told me in confidence and asked me not to tell anybody, especially not friend B. friend B heard some things about friend A knowing this, and he was spreading rumors, not necessarily rumors, but spreading stories about what has been going on. And friend B wanted me to tell him what was friend A talking about. And I was in a position where I didn't know whether I should tell friend B what was going on, because I felt I should at some points, because it was his life that I had to deal with. But then I also felt that I couldn't, because friend A told me this in confidence where I couldn't, and he asked me not to tell anybody. And I feel that if somebody asks you not to do something and you agree to it, you can't go back on your work. It's just not right.
I guess an example of an ethical dilemma that I can think of is more general. Within my job as a teacher and a dorm parent, there are certain times when I might have to put aside personal thoughts on a student for the sake of what the dilemma is, and look at it as objectively as possible. And when that happens, I have to fall back on my values versus maybe an emotion that I'm experiencing or feeling. And that's really where self-examination and reflection play a large role in defining what your expectations are for your personal ethics and what you expect your community to partake in.
Some of the ethical dilemmas that I'm thinking of now are the recent shootings that have been happening in California. And I think that's a lack of ethics, because it shows this man that is disrespecting all these families and tearing them apart by killing members of their family, 1, 2, 3, even up to 6 people.
I think by nature, I think we all face ethical dilemmas all the time. Do I have the big moment, in my life I remember? Probably not so much. But it'd be silly if I didn't wrestle with trying to answer that inner battle multiple times a day, especially in a position of discipline. The tug of war between what's best for the student versus what's best for the community. To me, that's the biggest one I face as I try to do to my job and try to make CFS a great place to be.
I recently saw a picture that was posted on Facebook that had a picture of Steve Jobs on it that said 1 person dies and 1 million cry. And on the other side it said 1 million die and no one cries. This is talking about poverty around the world.
Ethical dilemmas occur, especially in business, almost every day, because there's a constant ongoing battle between black and white and gray areas. You're constantly making decisions, constantly drawing on your foundation, ethical foundation, to make the right decisions in each case. I'm going to say other schools have cases where they have a board member who's in the insurance business, and the school has been buying insurance from them for many years. The business manager at that school goes out and gets a bid much cheaper than what that board member could provide. But that headmaster now has an ethical dilemma. Do they pick the cheapest, better policy, but dump the board member, somebody who's been volunteering and helping to govern the school? That's an ethical dilemma. One that it's clear what the decision is, but it's just amazing what the right decision is. But it's amazing how often that does occur. So it's balancing honesty and integrity of processes or people or institutions.